Welcome back everyone, and today I bring you the ultimate version of my bleeding edge build, the Flash. We're gonna be so fast, we're gonna be moving at almost 10 meters per second. Now, in this build, like every other bleeding edge build we've shown, we have infinite rage, we have 100% block, we got massive damage. We're browsing sick guys shot while being attacked by 25 enemies and the untainted mine sealer. Yeah, that is part of the build. We're gonna be going over our main stats, why toughness is the #1 choice. We're gonna be clicking that little more info button at the bottom of the main stats. We're gonna be talking about every stat in there. We're gonna be going over our gear. We're gonna break down the skill tree for lower level players. We're gonna be having multiple links for progression. Let's jump right into it. We have 4 different main stats: ferocity, toughness, agility, and wisdom. Every time that you level up, you're gonna get 10 points and you can spend them on whichever one you like. But the best way to spend them is just to throw them all into toughness, because aside from the 2 stats that you get from each one of them, they'll also have a stacking damage buff, and this damage will apply to every form of damage that you deal, whether it's a hit from a spell, an attack, or it is your elements. And toughness is just one of the most efficient ways to get health, and it is very easy to stack up crit chance and element chance from your gear. Let me just go ahead and show you the difference, right? I have 750%, just 0.1 off, right? Let's go ahead and reset this. Let's just throw a few hundred points here, a few hundred points there, a few hundred points there, and then just everything else over here. We have 648%. That's 100% less damage. Here we go. Let's just put everything back into toughness before I forget where I had them, because it's so difficult, right? Just toughness. There we go. Okay, here we are on the combat screen. There's something I wanted to point out with average damage. I sometimes have people ask me, oh my god, how is your average damage so high when I'm all buffed up? It's like 90,000 or something, right? And I just wanted to point out, guys, this is really just basic attack DPS. It's just basic attack damage per second. This doesn't have anything to do with your bleeding edge or your blaze storm. It's just basic attacks. It looks nice and everything, but this scales with attack speed. If I went and got myself a whole bunch of gear pieces with attack speed, it would just be super high, right? This doesn't actually mean that I'm doing a lot of damage or that anybody's doing a lot of damage in a bleeding edge build. We don't do normal attacks. Now, everything that you see here is about weapon damage, your basic attack damage. This is all your stats for your basic attacks. Now, some of this still applies to our skills, right? Because our build uses attack skills. So our crit chance here is the same crit chance that we're gonna have on our bleeding edge, on our blaze storm, right? The crit damage is still the same as well. Now, everything else that you see here doesn't actually matter to our skills, unless, like blaze storm and wings of Ishmir, their damage is entirely based on the damage types of the weapon damage. In this case they are, so this actually matters to them. They won't have that exact same amount of damage, but their damage types are gonna be the same because their damage is based entirely on the weapon damage type. So they will also be inflicting stasis and curse. The one thing that is directly affected by our weapon damage, that is Proud Reprisal, the passive note that we picked up right over here. It will inflict 100% weapon damage dealt to attacking enemy when their attack is blocked. We have a 100% chance to block, so we're always gonna be reflecting that damage back to our enemies. And here we are in the survivability window. Health, of course, you know what that is. It's our life. Now, health regeneration, this stat does not even matter to us. It is so small. Even if you increase it and go out of your way to raise it, it's still gonna be too small. Our health regeneration rate, however, is very important to us because all of our healing is done through life leech at the rate of health regeneration rate. The life leech is not instant. It will only heal at the intervals that says right there on health regeneration rate. In our case, because we have 2 rolls of health regeneration rate in our armor, it is down to 0.5, but by default it is 1 second. This attack life leech 5%. It is the 5% life leech from weapon damage that you can find in our weapon. Because it is on our weapon and we are attack skills, that 5% will also apply to our attack skills. That is why it shows right here as an attack life leech percentage. Force shield, you know what force shield is. Then we have force shield regeneration and force shield regeneration delay. What does that mean? That means your force shield is going to regenerate at this rate that shows right there, but when you lose force shield, you have to wait this amount of time before it starts to regenerate. In this case, it says 4.7 seconds. I don't care about that. I'm not really a force shield guy. I don't even have 10k. So, but that's what that is, right? If it goes down, I have to wait almost 5 seconds before it starts to regenerate. Block chance, you see there that we have 87.4%, but I told you this is a 100% block chance build, right? That's because the rest of our block chance is hiding in our Sovereign Shout. That's it right there, 100%. Our block efficiency is never gonna be too high. We're not worrying too much about it. We don't need to worry about it. If there's updates in the future and we have to start worrying about it, then we will. Right now, 21.4%. That's what we got. That's what we need. Presence, that just means threat, you know, the value of threat that you pull from enemies. Passive dodge chance doesn't even matter to us. Passive dodge chance, do I ever even dodge? I don't even know. Do I block and dodge at the same time? I don't know, guys, but it's there. We got 10.6%. That's just some flat score that I have on my armor by accident. I didn't even mean to have it. Now, movement speed, we have 9.4 meters a second. We are super fast, guys. Actually, I want to know, does it change when we use Warpath? No, it just says 0. Okay. Resistances types. Now, this goes before you block, right? When we block, we have block efficiency, which reduces our damage even further, but the resistances types applies to all forms of damage as well. It's a damage reduction to specific types of damage. So that's why you can have different types of reduction to different types of damage, right? Material, elemental, occult. Elements, everybody's favorite topic, right? Max element stacks that I have right now is 30. It will say right there how many you have. By default, it is 10. You pick a few nodes, 15, 20, 25. 30 is the maximum. It cannot go over that. And here we have the amount of damage that we deal with one stack. For example, on poison, 373 per stack and 11,177 at 30 stacks. That is what these two numbers are. You guys can see that these 4 elements, poison, bleed, burn, and shock, have something that says tick or rate. In the case of shock, it says shock tick. The other one say rate. That is the rate at which they will deal damage. So in my case, poison is only dealing damage almost every 1 second, bleed every half a second, burn the same, and shock every 1 second. That is what that is referring to. Then you have the duration of the ailment. That is all it is, just like it says there. In fact, I think if you hover over it, it has a very nice explanation of what it does, so that you can do that yourself in game. Most of the things here have an explanation. For example, average damage. It tells you right there, damage per second on your weapon damage. Curses, very useful, you know, but you still have to stack it up. Get that 34%. Resource pool, this is just your rage and willpower. Willpower regeneration, 17.5, but since I have it turned into rage, then it is rage. Rage conservation. A lot of people are confused about what rage conservation is. You can find it in your weapon. It's right below the sockets. 3 seconds rage conservation time. A lot of people are very confused by that. First thing I want to say about rage conservation is that when you have the skill node Furious Appetite, it is completely turned off. It is disabled. Rage conservation will not work once you have that node. So those of us playing Bleeding Edge or any build that's picking that up will not even have to concern themselves with this. And this would be good for us regardless, because what that does is that while willpower is regenerating and we regenerate some rage, willpower has to wait this amount of time before it starts to regenerate again. And that's all it does. So with Furious Appetite, it is disabled. And stamina is just how much stamina we have and how long it takes to regenerate 1 point of stamina. Now, health, close pickup radius, and goal pickup radius is just that, how close you have to be to those things in order to pick him up. How far is 3 meters? Oh my god. About one of these barrels here, that's how far 3 meters is. Our main skills: Warpath, Wings of Ishmir, Blaze Storm, Sovereign Shout, Bleeding Edge. Now, I have a Blood for Blood there, but you can put whatever you want in that spot. It really doesn't matter. Warpath. This is my favorite movement skill in the game by far. It moves so fast and it can get you from point A to a very far point B. And it involves a little bit of skill and experience. Otherwise, you're gonna be hitting every wall that you see. You're not going to be relying on the skill for damage, just for movement. Now, let's have a look at the runes. We have increased movement speed, damage based on block, just because there was no better choice of a rune. Now we have charge the skill to channel for longer. This is very important. This is what's gonna let us hold down the skill button and charge for a very long time. Now we have it set up here so that it will give us a resistance boost to ourselves and to our allies at the end of the charge. But you do have to charge for about a split second. You cannot just press the button and get the buff. Grants rage when it hits enemies, and whenever there's some kind of crowd controlling your way, you will not be affected by that. That barely ever comes into play, but if it does, we're immune to it. Wings of Ishmir, my other favorite movement skill. I mean, who would have thought, right? It's the two that I have. Let's go over the runes real quick. Increase flight speed. This is essentially a faster animation, right? Very similar to just having faster attack speed. Grants a buff for each enemy hit on landing. It doesn't specify what the buff is, but it is a buff for damage and can stack up to 5. Increased chance to inflict ailments. And there's just not much else to picking here, so a 5% increased chance to stasis and curse, I'll take it. Skill loses its cooldown and costs 1 stamina point to use instead. It's very important to us because a lot of times we just want to spam this skill in order to use our other rune here, Twisted Harbinger. It creates a vortex before landing that pulls enemies in within an area of effect. That's what's gonna pull all of those enemies right below you so that you can deal damage to them very quickly. And here we have Blaze Storm. This is pretty much one of our filler skills, but it's still gonna be hitting for 500,000 million damage depending on your gear, of course. Increased chance to inflict elements. This is pretty important for us because we're actually using the skill to inflict stasis and curse, and we want it to happen as often as possible. We want to stack up that curse. Imposing Will. This is the shockwave. This is what people call the shockwave. It will shoot out about 4 to 5 shockwaves at the end of the spin. Now, why do you want to use Imposing Will and not Unfettered Determination? Because Unfettered Determination is just going to keep spinning. It has a certain amount of time that it has to wait between each damage tick. And when you pick Imposing Will, it's going to throw like 4 or 5 shockwaves right away at the end of the first spin. It deals damage more often than just spinning and will have many more chances to inflict ailments. Wheel of Pain, increase damage per each ailment an enemy has. Now, this is not like the Bleeding Edge rune. What this means is that depending on how many different types of ailments are on the target, then you get a damage boost. We are using a build that has 6 to 7 ailments, so this means we're getting the best out of this rune. Shredding Whirlwind, increases critical damage. Cascading Rhythms, increases tick rate upon inflicting a critical hit. We got Spoils of War, increases critical chance when an enemy is killed with Blaze Storm. And Shiganite Density. And here we are at our Bleeding Edge. Now, very simple, we still haven't changed the runes. We have the same runes from before the Bleeding Edge changes. And here we have Unstoppable Momentum. And that cooldown reduction is what allows us to survive 187 on Tainted maps without too much requirement on gear. Why? Because with enough cooldown reduction, we're able to keep our blades constantly rotating and dealing damage non-stop. Which means we're always attacking, so we're always leeching life. And that is what will keep us alive in 187 on Tainted maps while getting attacked by multiple bosses. Astral Orbit, the axe is gonna follow you, plus it increases the duration of the blade for 1 second, which means a lot when it comes to self-adjusting principle, which increases the projectile speed by a lot. Now it says projectile speed and it refers to your axe rotating, but it is not really a projectile in any other sense that you cannot go and get projectile damage increases and increase the damage of Bleeding Edge. That will not work. And Despotic Perseverance is everybody's favorite node on Bleeding Edge, increases damage per element stack. That's the one that's getting 2% damage increase for each one of those 30 stacks of each different ailment type that we have 6 to 7 of. Now, another thing that I wanted to point out about Unstoppable Momentum is that while it is chosen, your weapon damage type does not matter whatsoever. You can use Shadow, Ether, Sacred, Lightning, Fire, Toxic damage weapon. It doesn't matter. The only thing that Bleeding Edge now cares about is the total damage on the weapon, 733 to 1062. Let's, for example, swap into a material weapon here. We have 26 and 48 total damage. Swap into a material weapon, 25 and 41. If anything, it went down. Alright, we're gonna be going over gear. You know me, Salvatore Anchor all the way, heavy helmet, heavy chest piece. But what I'm gonna be giving you are the details on the best pieces of gear for the build. I'll show you mine, but we're gonna be talking about what is the absolute best for the build. Now, when it comes to the heavy helmet and heavy chest piece, you want them to have cooldown reduction. Why? Because we want 3 rolls of cooldown reductions on everything: helmet, chest, and pants. Now, we're focusing on toughness, but we can also have ferocity. My suggestion is have at least 5 rolls of toughness. The other 3 can be ferocity. it's not gonna be a problem. It's just 4 and 4. That's perfectly fine. Between your helmet, chest, and pants, you want to have 2 rolls of health regeneration rate and 1 roll of transfer rate. In my ideal perfect piece, all 3 of those things will take the same spot, right? Obviously, the helmet and chest, you want to make sure they have both flat all resistances and percentage all resistances, because that's where all your defenses are, you know? Now, your damage percentage rolls have to be either material damage or damage. So that puts us at 2 health regeneration rate rolls and 1 transfer rate with 3 cooldown reduction rolls. Now, the pants are not bruiser anymore. Forget about bruiser pants. They don't do enough for us. It's rogue pants from now on, and they have movement speed. You want to try and get plus 10% movement speed. We want to go fast. Get that movement speed. Now, the rolls are the same as with your helmet and chest. You got your damage, you got your health regeneration rate or transfer time, you got toughness or ferocity, you got your cooldown reduction, and if you get lucky, you also have a flat health and a percentage health on that. Now, shoulders and gloves. We want rage and willpower cost reduction on all of them. Damage percentage or material damage percentage, that goes for every piece of armor. Toughness and ferocity, same thing. Now, we want to have at least 4 rolls of element chance score and at least 4 rolls of critical chance score across all 8 pieces of armor. That doesn't count your accessories. And at least 1 roll of attack speed. That means a piece of armor somewhere is not going to have double life. Oh my god, like, what a tragedy, right? Let's go over to your amulet and belt. Your amulet and belt can roll all of the same rolls. Of course, I mean, if you have a trial belt, you're going to put that on, but otherwise, you're going to have a legendary belt. They can roll the same things as the amulet. The Omnistar amulet can have all the way up to plus 20 to all attributes. The goal here is flat physical damage, percentage rend damage, maximum life, plus 20% critical damage, right? If you get ailment stacks or material damage or critical strength score, even the rend damage percentage, this will be extra rolls, right? The focus is the flat damage, the life, and the critical damage. With the belt, same thing. The belt that you want to get is Champion Girdle. It goes all the way up to plus 30% attack damage, minus 5% off, but you know. Why do I focus so much on the flat life? Because that flat life right there, for example, 700 flat life on my belt, it's actually a lot of life. We're talking about what we got, 129, and this brings us up to 146. That's almost 17,000 life right there, just from a simple 1700 life roll on an accessory. Now, when it comes to the rings, you're looking for steel rings with a base of plus 30% critical damage. If you're lucky and you have enough Genesis stones to be rolling it, or you just happen to get it, you know, at the end of a untainted run like I've been doing, you get plus 2 element stacks inflicted, flat life, critical damage, fire or lightning damage to attacks. That's what we're looking for, so that we can continue manipulating our ailment. Now, the damage rolls, rend damage percentage, material damage percentage, or attack critical chance percentage, flat life, critical damage. These are just the best rolls, right? Not everybody's gonna get it. I don't have that. These are just the best options that we could possibly get on a ring. Let us have a look at the Gate of Fate. This gate that we're looking at here is one we have shared before with our best bleeding edge build videos. I believe this one is for 200. Yes, this is for 200 users. We're gonna skip over to the next one here. This one is for 100, same build, just small alterations to grab the nodes that are actually for a 100 player. And here we are with our final alteration, which is the Flash. Now, I'm not gonna go over these 2 previous gates. We've already talked about them in previous videos, and there's not much that has changed between them to this one, except that we're dropping our disallowing vessel and picking up a lot of movement speed everywhere that we can in order to be really fast, right? Because that's what we want right now. We have the gear now, we have a pretty decent gear. We just want to go fast now because we can survive without disallowing vessel, and all we care about now is just to clear as fast as possible. We started with Soldier, moved on to Cabalist. Why Soldier? Soldier has the most damage that we can possibly pick up, and he has attack speed right here. Now, you know, it's all about damage, critical damage, and critical strike chance. So there's really no other options for us here. Now, we jump straight into Cabalist, which is our bread and butter, the Immortal Offering stacking. We have gone ahead and dropped Insidious Decay because we have between 2 to 3 accessories that have +2 ailment stacks. So we no longer need this anymore. We just removed it, got a little bit of damage back from that, which is gonna help after we have removed Disallowing Vessel. We picked up 1 speed node, 2 speed nodes, 3 speed nodes, 4 speed nodes. Now, these also have a little bit of attack speed, which is nice to have. Let us have a look at the big nodes. Cabalist, everybody's familiar with it. Grievous Afflictions, it allows us to inflict 1 extra ailment. Part of the first man here, this is what is allowing us to inflict a lot of ailments, because whatever amount of ailment we're inflicting, this will multiply it by 2. Immortal Offering, this is the one that's giving us a lot of damage with 5% damage per stack. And since we have 6 to 7 different ailments, we have anywhere between 30 to 35 different stacks of elements, which means that we have up to 175% extra damage. And something that I forgot to mention last time is that every percentage of damage provided by Immortal Offering, it's also going to apply to all 4 damage over time elements: Fire, Lightning, Bleed, and Toxic. They're all gonna get 175% more damage. Salvatory Anchor, this is the big defense node here. This is the one that's going to multiply all the resistances on your heavy chest piece. And the one behind the Elongated Gain is going to do the same thing, but for your helmet. Toxic Emanations, this is what's providing our poison ailment. The speed node, we have Manic Slaughter, just getting a little bit of extra damage there from our unspent rage. Furious Appetite, this is what's making our rage regenerate instead of willpower. Fierce Appetite, this was giving us 100% extra damage as long as we cast our Bleeding Edge above 750 rage. And since we have so much cost reduction in our armor and so much cooldown reduction, it's so easy to restore our rage. This barely even affects our rage at all. Persistence Hunting, this is giving us 25% damage against everything we fight, because we're inflicting stasis on everything and it's just 1 point to the side. More movement speed. Here we got Dire Juncture and Witch Time Cannot Heal. Witch Time Cannot Heal is 100% more damage on each hit. For example, every time Bleeding Edge rotates and hits, whenever our Blade Storm hits, whenever our Winds of Ishmir hits, this is gonna add a 100% more damage dealt 1.5 seconds after the initial hit. Dire Juncture, this is a defensive node. Let's say that you get hit for 1000 damage, you're only gonna get hit by 400 of that, and then 1 second after you're gonna get hit by the other 600, which saves our life a lot because we're leeching so quickly, and this is splitting up our damage taken, keeping us alive. It's one of the main reasons that we have so much survivability. Over here we're picking up some Rage with Duty to Exterminate and the 2 nodes behind it. Twisted Obligation. What a name. Okay. Then over here we got Virtual Stance and Ingenious Stance. What this is doing is giving us a 15% chance to inflict double damage on all of our attack skills. It is reducing our resistances, but because we are taking advantage of Salvatory Anchor and Elevated Gain, it's not really going to affect us to a point that we're going to get killed by it. Then over here to the right we have Proud Reprisal. This is what's allowing us to counter with our weapon damage every time that we block. Then up here we have Merciless Lethality. Right behind it we have 3 nodes of 18% critical strike chance, which is very nice. It's going to be giving us 60% critical damage. Big damage node. We have Sacred Oath right over here. This is what's giving us our Sacred Damage Immortal Offering. Every time that we block, we inflict weakness, and when we kill those enemies, we receive the Immortal Offering of Sacred. Then over here to the right, followed by a whole bunch of attack damage nodes, is Dawn's Spire Striker. In other words, Agathea. She's the one striking your enemies to death once they hit 15% life or less. She will kill them, she will finish them off with 1 hit. Of course, you do have to have sacred damage in order to make use of that, but since you're inflicting weakness and receiving a sacred offering, this is gonna provide us with sacred damage in order to take advantage of her strike. Now, let's go ahead and have a look at the last gate that I set up here. This one looks a little bit different. This is the one that I set up for progression. This is as far as I'm gonna take the progression tree. This should be good enough for somebody to start farming gear and then swap into one of the endgame builds, which is just a little bit different than this really. I'm gonna be setting this up with multiple links all the way down to level 15. I'm gonna start setting up trees starting at level 15 with notes on what variations you could make, all the way up to level 71, which is this tree right here. I'm gonna be setting it up on my Discord. I will be providing a Discord link on the description so that you guys can go check it out over there. And whenever I need to update the links or update the build in any way, I'll be updating it on the Discord. That way you guys can get updates as they happen. And next, I'm going to be working on a mage build. And I'm looking forward to the next Wolcen patch And I really hope it brings changes to our bleeding edge so we can come back and just make the next best bleeding edge build all over again. I hope that everybody enjoyed the video and found it helpful. Please like and subscribe. I'm only 650 subs away from YouTube partnership. I will see you guys on the next video.